in striving for attributes, what are typically sometimes called the attributes of masculinity, or if it were a woman asking the question, is in striving for attributes of femininity, how much of that can we find in the Bible? How much of it is biblical? And then how do we balance things like an Old Testament command that seems to have a masculine force, be strong, be courageous, fight the battle, go up at once, take the mountain, with what Jesus says when he says be poor in spirit, be humble, put the ear back on the guy, Peter, that you just cut off. How do we balance those, and what does the Bible say about striving for those? Now, there's a couple issues that we can get into when we get into this. Sometimes when we get into the role of men and women, it can get super controversial, but we could stay away from all of that.
Stay away from that, right.
We can stay away from all of that. So I was planning on it. I don't like to start fights. You're the one that starts
fights.
fights.
Yeah, I know. You teased it, though, and everybody wants to go there now.
Oh, well, anyway. So we'll stay away from all that.
That's the most volatile issue in all of theology.
Yeah, but you have to come to the theology program to know how to deal with that. So come back on a Monday night. But if we set all that aside, I think anybody from any position, complementarian, egalitarian, whatever, would acknowledge that there is a distinction, and somebody coming from a Christian background anyway, would affirm that there's a distinction between the sexes, not only biologically, but also in terms of our personality, in terms of how we handle things, in terms of...
You are going there. What are you doing? You saed you're not going there, and then you're going there.
An egalitarian would affirm that. Absolutely. There's a distinction in the sexes, but
No, they won't. Not all of them.
Absolutely. Well, the good ones would. The ones who agree with me would. Anyway, so here's the thing. In Genesis, God says that he creates man in his image, right? We just talked last night, had a session about the Imago Dei. But then he says, male and female created he them. In the image, singular, of God created he them. And the idea there is, and this I've seen this idea pushed in really bad directions, and I'm going to stay away from some of that, but the idea there is that the image of God inherently contains both a masculine expression and a feminine expression. And in order for God to demonstrate who he was, to let us be his image bearers, he couldn't demonstrate that just by creating Adam. And he couldn't demonstrate that just by creating Eve. He could only demonstrate it by creating two beings who had distinctions and who would live in community. That was the only way to represent his image. So I would say that in terms of striving towards typically called masculine or typically called feminine traits, we need to ask ourselves, how does the image of God in the Bible play out in a particular gender? And those questions can get sticky there. You know, should I be courageous right here? Is it better to fight in battle or to be a pacifist? Can women be in leadership? All the questions that go into that. But if we all realize what we're really wrestling with is how do we display through our gender the image of God, then I think we'll be on a good track to answering those questions. Does that help at all?
I do think you can have both. You can have humility yet be strong and courageous. You can be poor in spirit in the sense of downcast. You can be even, blessed are those who continually mourn. You can be continually sad, yet at the same time display an inner joyfulness and a stability. I think all of these can be both. It's not an either or, it's a both and once again.
Good.
In our lives. And so poor in spirit, having to do with your humility and your thoughts of yourself, and you're really a humble person. You're not haughty in spirit. That'd be kind of the opposite of it. And so you go into battle and you be strong and courageous, but you're not haughty. You're relying upon the Lord. And you can be sad and depressed, yet at the same time have a stability of joy that maybe it's not as stable as you'd like it to be, but it's stable enough to get you until you get to the Lord.